Welcome to the Lunch and Learn podcast from the National Fire Chiefs Council Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Project. This is the first series of podcasts, and we urge you to share widely with your friends and colleagues to give greater awareness into equality, diversity and inclusion. These Lunch and Learn sessions have been developed to share knowledge and lived experiences via a Teams meeting discussing topics that affect the fire service across the UK. To mark the International Men's Day, Andy Biggington from Fire Kent and Rescue Service will be talking about how to run a men's talking club, which is a mental fitness community for men.
And a very, very warm welcome indeed to today's Lunch and Learn, which is on the topic of men's talking clubs. And I think, first of all, just on behalf of myself and the NFCC, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. We do hope you'll find today's session useful. If it's your first time, welcome. If you've joined us before, welcome back. And I think Nikki did remind me today, so thanks for the reminder, Nikki. It is International Men's Day, where we celebrate worldwide the positive value men bring to the world, their families and communities, and we highlight the role models and that we raise awareness of men's well-being, which is what we are doing today. So today is one in a series of Lunch and Learn sessions developed as part of the NFCC's People programme, and we've had some fantastic feedback so far about our Lunch and Learns and the podcasts that we've produced, and I'm sure that today will be no exception. I'll shortly introduce Andy Biggington from Kent Fire and Rescue Service, who has very kindly offered to present at today's Lunch and Learn. Just in terms of an introduction from myself then, my name is Carl Bozeman. I'm Assistant Chief Fire Officer with Cleveland Fire Brigade, and my role is Director of Community Protection, so that's all things operational for Cleveland Fire Brigade. I am delighted as well to be a member of the NFCC EDI board and the EDI project, which supports delivery of the People programme. Just by way of background really for information, the NFCC EDI project is led by Alex Johnson from South Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service. We have Aidan Bartley as the programme support officer who's on today, and also Nikki Thurston, who's our EDI technical lead, who's also on today. So I suppose what we're trying to achieve through the EDI project, well, it's about driving best practice into everything the Fire and Rescue Service does and into the NFCC by building hubs of best practice, tools and guidance, networks, and that's achieved by 4 work streams which feed directly into the NFCC EDI board. That's outreach, data, EDI hub and research. And each work stream is led by a colleague with a strong interest in EDI across the sector. And you may be aware of some of the products and best practice that's already out there. So, for example, the NFCC Equality Impact Assessment Training, Equality of Access documents, EDI forums, the EDI calendar, which is currently being populated, and the Lunch and Learn sessions, which is why, of course, we're here today, which leads us nicely on to today's Lunch and Learn, which is on the topic of men's talking club. Now, men's mental health has for many years been a taboo subject, with many people and many men suffering in silence. And very sadly, a high proportion of men take their own lives each year. Tragically, it is the biggest killer of men under 45, and the impact of last year and the pressures of last year will have only exacerbated the issue. Many of us will have suffered poor mental health. It's not just about men, but many of us will have suffered poor mental health in our lives, or we will know somebody who may be struggling as well. And I think it's fair to say that one of the biggest barriers to men accessing mental health support is the fear of being seen as weak, unable to cope, or not being good at the job. Now, I think we'll all agree that things have definitely improved in recent years, but I think it's a proven fact that there is still some stigma attached to asking for help, but it's also a proven fact that talking can help as well. And we all know that how we're feeling day to day can really affect our health and well-being. Well, help is at hand because I am delighted to welcome Andy from Kent Fire and Rescue Service, who has very kindly offered to share his interest and experience in Men's Talking Club. Now, Andy is an operational station manager with over 27 years experience. He has a strong background in mental health support. He's a mental health first aider, welfare and safeguarding. We will have a short period for questions at the end, but without any further ado, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to Andy. Hand over to you, Andy, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Carl. And I'd like to say, yes, I did volunteer. Thanks, Nikki, to do the session today. And I am really pleased and happy to be here to be able to share some of the information, some of the initiatives that we're thinking about and doing in Kent at the moment. But I must say, before I start the presentation, just a little bit of background to myself. And as Carl says, I will be, or we all will be through Nikki as well, open to questions around what we're doing through Talk Club or other EDI topics in Kent as well. We're really open to sharing what we're doing just recently. So further ado then, so thank you, Carl, and thank you for this opportunity. It's fantastic to be here. And as Carl says, I'm Andy Biggington, and my pronouns are he, him, because that sort of links into one of my support roles as the LGBT ally here in Kent as well. So I sit in that function too. Today I'm a 7. This number will become more apparent later on in the presentation. But as Carl says, I am a station manager here in Kent and currently a cluster manager, which in other services means district command. I've served here, again, 27 years in numerous roles: operational, community safety, collaboration, ops services. And before this, I was in the military, so I've experienced trauma in both roles and at both levels. I think that's why it's really important that we talk and share. I do have a couple of additional roles within the fire service here. I am a 1 week in 5. I'm a welfare support officer, which offers pastoral support to our colleagues in Kent service, which could be anything from referring people to a We Are With You pathway or looking at other support mechanisms for them. I'm a designated safeguarding officer, where I support internal and external customers with referrals, a mental health first aid instructor, which I've just qualified in, which is fantastic. And I'm a diffusing officer, which in other services could be related to TRIM. So all these support mechanism roles that I do links really nicely into my mental health support and the Talk Club initiative that we're thinking about, or we have started within Kent here. Sadly, as Carl says, like most people here online today, we do know of people, colleagues and friends that have completed suicide, which is a sad fact. If they had someone to talk to, I believe we could have stopped this. And I've personally had to manage a number of situations of this during my time in Kent as a manager, recently 6 months ago, and then just before that, 12 months before. Sadly, one was a complete suicide, and one was we had a good outcome of the second one. But through talking, through discussion, through research, Kent became aware of the Talk Club, which is a charity, and we thought this would be a great opportunity to support our male colleagues. I know there's other support pathways and mechanisms, but we thought this was quite a unique way of trying to engage that male colleague and supporter in the fire service. Albeit it is in its initial stages, we do have planned sessions around the venues in the county. But unfortunately, due to COVID and other sicknesses, attendance has been very, very limited. We did have a number of people book to come to one of the sessions, but unfortunately, because COVID hit, we had to cancel it. We've got 2 events open, one in Rochester, which is top end of the county of Kent, and then we've got one which is next Tuesday down at Ramsgate, which is closer to France than it is London. We're 27 miles from France, we're 70 miles from London. So we've got an eclectic 2 areas we can use for this. So we're really open to doing the Talk Club sessions. Again, as Carl alluded to, there are a number of statistics about male suicide and mental health, but I do want to talk about that today, because I just want to talk about what the concept of a Talk Club is, because your services, be it internally, externally, or what other jobs that you do or roles you have outside, you may want to look at what a Talk Club is and how it can benefit male friends, colleagues and customers. So Talk Club is about male fitness. And all these statements here we know about. Many men seem to think that mental health and mental illness are the same thing. I'm not going to go into the mental health training, but we know we've all got mental health, and on a day-to-day that can be affected by internal and external factors. But at some stage we may become mentally ill, which then needs interventions from medical support. It is like physical health, but for your brain. You know, we exercise our bodies, but we do need to exercise our brain, especially as, like myself, getting a little bit on the older side as well. Talk Club is like a gym session for your brain, and it supports get mentally fit and mentally strong. We've all seen those individuals that you can recognise when they come to work, they're struggling. And we also recognise those individuals that come to work that won't talk or don't talk. Again, 27 years ago when I joined, we're very much a male-dominated service in Kent. We didn't have any female firefighters back then. You could see that, I could certainly see coming from a stronger uniform service into a fire service, you could see those that were really hard and didn't want to talk about any emotions or feelings. It was really hard sometimes to actually open up. But I think through the support mechanisms, the pathways, and the next generation coming through into the fire services, that's changing. People are more open to talk about how they feel, what they see, and what they want to do. So it is about talking and listening. It's been proven, talking about our thoughts is a good way to look after our mental health. The old adage, the old saying, a problem shared is a problem halved. By sharing a problem, an issue, a situation with somebody else, they may give you the extra support that you need, or a little bit of a nudge in the right direction. Most men don't seem to know how to open up and talk about how they're feeling. I can certainly say some of the meetings I sit in with Nikki, that's not the case in Kent. Some of our male colleagues are very, very open to saying how they feel and what they want to bring to the table. But there are still that number that won't open up because they don't know how to. Or it's about they don't because it's not what men do. We still hear that, and that makes me shiver. I'm a very colourful person. Nikki probably will confirm that. But it is about being able to open up, talk to people, have that professional, untouching cuddle of someone to say, look, come and talk to me. I'm here for you. Sit down, have a coffee, have a drink, let's go for a walk. But it's because they don't recognise, or it's because it's not what men do. It's a really sad statement. It does make me shiver, that one. So then, what is a talk club? So this is where we get into the nuts and bolts of what a talk club is. So it's a meeting based around 4 simple questions and led by a captain. Captain isn't what we called it. Captain is what the We Talk Club have called it. So the captains are the facilitators. We've got 10 in Kent. So at any time, you could have 2 captains to facilitate 1 or 2 groups at a time. It is based on 4 simple questions. So how are you? From 1 to 10, how are you feeling right now? So 1 is the lowest, 10 is the best day of your life. And you say your number and try to explain why you're at that number. Hence, I said I'm a 7 because today I'm a little bit anxious about talking on this platform. So for me, 7. Normally, I'm an 8 or 9 because I'm comfortable in what I'm doing. But obviously, a little bit of anxiousness. I'm a 7 today. So what are you happy about? What moments from the last week are you really grateful for? Things that we're grateful for, it could be a really small thing that when you reflect on that, you can see what effect it's had on you moving through the week. And to share that little thing for you could be a great situation for somebody else. What are your plans for mental fitness this week? So if you exercise, are you going to do more? If you don't exercise, are you going to? Are you going to go for that walk along the beach, along the river, in the park? Take your dog out, take your partner with you. Relaxation. Are we going to use those techniques we've been taught in all these different training courses that we do to relax ourselves? Take that hour for yourself every day to relax. And I know we're all guilty of this. Take a lunchtime walk. We're all guilty of taking that 10-minute sandwich at our desk, standing or seated, and not taking that time to decompress away from our screen. And we know, it's been recognised, that saying out loud means you are more likely to do it. Because you've engaged somebody eye to eye, because you've been in the same space as somebody and you've said, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Next time you see them, they might say, Andy, did you do that? And you have to say yes or no. So by saying it out loud means you're more likely to actually do what you said you're going to do. So, and at the end of the session, how are you feeling now out of 10? So rechecking shows just how easy our mood can be lifted, just simply by listening and sharing. By listening to somebody else's situations, their feelings, their mood, can actually help us look at ourselves and actually think, actually, it's not that bad for me, but perhaps I need to support this person because they seem to in a bad or unsafe space. So it's about supporting others, but also sharing your information or your feelings too. Really, in a nutshell, a talk club lasts about 2 hours, depends on the people in there, but you do say to them, we will be finished in 2 hours because it could go on forever. Some people, like myself, can talk and waffle on quite a lot, but in this situation, you do want to be very specific and say, right, we will have 2 hours to talk. Ideally, 6 to 8 men. We can push it at 10, but again, then you've only got the 2 hours to do that. Again, we've got a number of individuals coming this afternoon, which I thank you for. We're going to do it on a virtual platform, a little bit more difficult, but we'll try it and we'll go through the process. Because really, you do want to be sitting in a circle. You do want face-to-face contact, eye contact, body language reading in a circle. Sitting in a circle, as we all know, there's not a chairperson there. You're all equals in that circle. There is a talk club ball. So the captain will start off with the talk club ball and give his 1, 2, 3, 4 questions. Once he's comfortable and wants to pass that ball on, he can go left, right, forward. And the next person who has that ball is the person that talks. Everybody else listens. That's their time, that's their space to actually give off how they're feeling, what they're thankful for, what they're grateful for. It might take a few meetings for it to start to work. Because you don't go to the gym just once to be fit, but we do need to think about, I'll go once, I've not got an answer. But you're not there for an answer, you're there for support and guidance, really. It is about going there more than once, continually go to the sessions because that will build on your network, on your confidence and who you want to speak to. Again, it is about a community of men that are changing the way we talk and certainly deal with what is happening as it happens, because we know by us sharing what's happened to us, that might resonate in another person that goes, actually, that I can see that happening to me in the future, or potentially that happened to me a couple of weeks ago and I didn't know what to do. What did you do? And then just share. It is about the open, safe space to share your feelings, talk about your mental health. Think if you're going down the mental illness route, and is there something you need to be supported with? There's talk clubs, run clubs, fishing clubs. So it's not just about sitting down. You can go for a walk club and talk as you walk, so you are getting healthy and fitter as you're doing it. There's lots of people out there who want to reach out and literally talk to you about being safe. So thank you for that time, and I am more than happy, and I'm sure Nikki is as well, to talk about our talk club and anything you want to know about EDI within the Kent environment.
So thanks so much, Andy. That's really, really useful. I guess that's kind of our start point then, isn't it, for today? And I suppose what might just be sort of useful just to maybe think back to some of the things you've said there that struck a chord with me. And I think one of the first things you said is that thing about the opening up. It's not what we do, is it, as men? We're not very good at doing that, are we? And no matter what anybody says, I think it is that first, how are you, that question. It's such a simple question, isn't it? But of course, it's probably the most challenging, isn't it, and difficult. And actually, so I'm just a curious question from me to start us off, really. I suppose, how are you? Asking that question, how easy do you find asking, and what, any tips for kind of, moving that on? Because actually, the first thing we'll always say is, well, we're fine.
Fine.
Yeah, I'm great. Yeah, really good. Thanks. How are you? How are you? Get away from me and let's talk about you. What are your tips for kind of exploring the how are you, Andy?
I always say it twice or 3 times. Perhaps once, how are you? Then in another way, you're fine. What's going on for you? For me, it's about asking a question a number of times in a number of ways. And if you know the person, it's easier because you can link into their personality or their family background. But I think it is about asking that, how are you, more than once in a number of ways, because some people, as you said, will go, I'm fine, I'm okay, thanks. But if you ask again, you might get, well, I'm all right, but, and then that opens up the conversation. Dean.
Yeah, hi. Thanks a lot. It's brilliant what you're doing. I've just actually 5 weeks ago started doing a men's walk and talk around our local park, basically aiming at the same thing. And it does work. What you're doing definitely does work. I mean, we've been running 5 weeks and we've had an amazing uptake already. And the amount of guys that have turned up, and now, like the first couple of weeks didn't say much, now we're really opening up, and the feedback we're getting from it, and it's, momentum's going. And this week we were actually in talks with the Met Police and LAS, who now are promoting our walk through their station, so they're jumping on board. So there is definitely a need for it, and it is working, and people are starting to be receptive to it and attend these things. So it's fantastic what you're doing, and well done.
No, thank you. And I think that's our next step. If we still find it difficult for people to come into our establishments because of COVID and the risk assessment, I'll go through Nikki and the welfare manager to say, look, perhaps we can need to do something else around a walk club, a run club, and a fishing club, something that resonates in people around the service.
Thanks, Dean. Thanks, Andy. I mean, that's a great suggestion, isn't it? Because, of course, for some people coming into the formal environment, that in itself may well present, a challenge, a barrier. People know what I'm here for. I think one of the barriers certainly we've identified in my own service has been that whenever we give access to occupational health for talking therapies, we used to always insist that they came to our headquarters at a certain time. And of course, everybody knows what you're there for. And of course, that in itself may well be a barrier, because that opening up, that first step is often the hardest to take, isn't it? So I think, Dean, it's a great suggestion, because I think some of the best conversations I've ever had, even with myself, have been when I've been walking, or my dog, actually. But of course, it's quite a natural thing to do. You're getting the exercise, and it touches on perhaps what you said before, Andy, around that link to the body and mind. And actually, sometimes we underestimate how strong that link is. And I think just the action of walking, that side by side, it just brings another dynamic, doesn't it, to it? And I think, Nikki, you just sort of touched on that there with the no direct eye contact. That's the thing sometimes that, again, can be positive, can't it? And again, it might be something that we might want to consider, because one of the questions I was hoping to ask was really just around, what would your advice be, Andy, around if anybody on the call today wanted to do something similar? Are there any, and I'm sure that we'd have to be, kind of mindful and careful that, in opening up, some people we may well need to have some safeguards in place to make sure that if somebody does identify and share, there are certain things, and I know you've got a background in mental health first aid, Andy, and also safeguarding. So I wondered if you had any reflections on your experience and perhaps some advice to anybody that wanted to start something like this.
I think it's like anything, isn't it? You've got to be open to begin with, and ask for that verbal consent for that anybody walking into this room, basically saying, "Oh, we're coming to this space and we will be talking about X, Y, and Z. If and if there is something that comes to light that I feel it could put you into danger, I will need to refer or talk to you about referring to other services to support you, or me, because I might find it distressing, or another member of the club." So certainly with that, I just want to go back one actually about going to headquarters for meetings and things. The two locations we've got, the Rochester one is what used to be our road safety experience. So it's next to a fire station, but very, very detached. So you can park separately. You can go for a separate entrance. And the Ramsgate station, again, it's on the side of a fire station, but it's part of our training centre, and it's one of the training rooms upstairs, out of the way, which you can come via another entrance. So yeah, we do try to keep it away from fire stations, specifically because of that reason. People don't feel comfortable, and people might think, "Oh, we know why you're there."
Yeah, because again, perceptions around mental health, and in particular perceptions around male mental health. And of course, there is research out there that kind of around the perceived image of a firefighter as well, that, we have to be strong and we have to be, and actually, again, I think one of the barriers, certainly that through some research that I've read, was around people fearing that perception of, oh my God, I may be seen as weak and unable to do my job. How have you kind of worked around those issues, Andy, if you've identified them?
Again, it's been open and honest. Just we ask people to email us first, so we know that they're coming, and if they've got any specific questions or issues that they may face, ask us to begin with, so we can look at other solutions if we need to. I think that is really important. I mean, for example, he's a whole-time firefighter, but an on-call retained part-time crew manager, saying, "My on-call colleagues don't feel comfortable coming into a whole-time station to talk about mental health." So that way, I said, well, perhaps we could look at some kind of bespoke. We'll come to you, do something on a perhaps a drill night, just to say we're going to be in the corner of the yard or sitting in whatever tea room. Come and see us, and we can have that decompression, that chat.
Yeah, good stuff. And I'm just picking up on some comments in the chat bar there, just around walking side by side, going back to Dean's point and around Nikki's point around the direct eye contact. And I suppose, have you tried any other environments, Andy? While we're sort of talking about that, you say you can take it out, you can headquarters, different stations. Have you tried any other environments that completely away from work that you found to be beneficial at all?
Not yet, because obviously it's still in its infancy, but we will be taking on board, obviously, because of the on-call issue that we had, and obviously, as Dean said, walking is fantastic. So we could advertise we're going to go to a space, and then the on-call colleagues will come along too. But as a group management team, a district management team, we go out regularly and go for a walk as a team. So we sort of download with each other and talk about the pressures of obviously managing our stations, both managing down and managing up. So we do that quite regularly, going out on the Y Peninsula in December, just to do exactly that.
Dean, pop your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, just going back, like our setup's sort of similar, so I didn't know if you had any more advice, but we do sort of similar thing. When we meet, we're all in a circle, we have a check-in, give everyone a chance to have a talk, we lay the rules, basically saying we're not there for counselling or advice. We can signpost if need be, no interrupting, only ask clarification questions, gives everyone a chance to talk, or not if they don't want to. And then we have a nice hour walk around the park, finish off with a checkout again, make sure everyone's all right again, give everyone a chance if they want to talk then. And then we normally sit and have a coffee with anyone that wants to hang around for a little bit and just chill out a bit afterwards. But I didn't know if you had any more advice on.
No, that's exactly what the We Are Talk Club described to you. Be it have four walls, have green space. They exactly say do exactly that. Check in, have the conversation, check out, hang around if you need to, because there may be that one individual that thinks I can't talk in a group, but I'm going to come talk to you because I've identified with you. So it's about giving that time and space too. So you're right, Dean. It's the same type of thing that we're doing. It's just that one's inside, one's outside, but we will be exploring through Nikki a walk talk club. Hands up, Nick.
Yeah, it's just really to add to that. Andy and I have had a number of conversations, but as someone who has a partner who manages their mental health, I would say they've been diagnosed with PTSD and manages that now. The woods is a really good environment because of the trees and that sort of campfire mentality. I know I've bored Andy on the escapades in my home over going to the woods, but I had a couple of questions, Andy, if I may. What kind of frequency do you feel works best with the talk clubs? And is it the same people to each talk club, or do they interchange? Is it, does that affect the dynamics? Which sort of works best? So I guess there's a few questions in there.
So the captains do get moved around because you don't want someone, I mean, like myself, being operational on the rota. It's difficult sometimes when you do Tuesday nights because I'll be on call. So we do try to mix up the captains, and as I said, we're trying to sort of mix up where we go as well, because some people don't travel 45 miles up the road just to go and sit down for a couple of hours and talk to someone. So it is about changing up the captains because, as we know, not everybody likes everybody else's personality, so we have to be careful and mindful of how that sort of sits. And what was the other one?
Yeah, just sort of the frequency, whether
Oh, yes.
the groups change as well. I
Yeah.
appreciate the captains will, but is it something that it's the same group of men meeting, or can that group dynamic of who comes to the group, so the session's got
Yeah.
the format, but the group of people change, and how often should they be?
So initially we started it once a month just to get the uptake of it. We was then looking at twice a month, but I'm sure Dean was saying he probably does it once a week for the walk club. So we said no, once a month, then do it bi-monthly, then do it. If it gets that strong, we can then start doing one end of the counter, one at the other. And of course, the group can change. Somebody might want to dip in for 2 weeks. They've had enough. They've got the solution they need. Some people might stay forever. But it's very dynamic, very fluid. So yeah, you are open to a dynamic group of people.
And do they, you said the sort of 4 questions. Is it something somebody can do on their own? Is it something they can get into to practicing to do that check of how they feel in the
Yeah,
morning, and measure it? Is that helpful? Is that healthy thing to do?
I think so. I think we probably all do it naturally anyway. You wake up, you got your morning routine, you then got your go to work routine. Some of us have to drive sometimes. That hour to work and back is our 1 to 10 on the way to work, and then when we're driving home, that's our 1 to 10 on the way back. Listening to a podcast, listening to some music, singing to yourself in the shower. It's that download too.
Thank you.
Nikki was saying obviously about her husband who manages his mental health, and we were talking about going into the woods and other things. But because there are other support mechanisms out there, so I'm also the Armed Forces Covenant lead for Kent and the Armed Forces Network Champion lead. So there are other pathways available. So Nikki's brought that her husband likes to do things in the woods. There is the Veterans Trees, which is in Kent, and it's exactly what Nikki was describing. It's a group of veterans that go into the woods. They make fire, they make tea, they put up bivvies. They sleep under the stars. They talk about old war stories, and they swing the lantern. So so if someone identifies through Talk Club that it's not for them, but they're a veteran, we could refer them into something like Veterans Trees or through the Armed Forces Network.
And they do those all over the country, don't they,
They
Andy?
do, yeah, all over the place.
Sounds great. Can non-veterans go? It sounds like my ideal weekend, that. No.
Well, it just so happens that we may be looking at something in Kent via Nikki's link. So, but if that ever happens, I'm sure we could invite a few people down. So it could be a tea and learn, or a marshmallow under the stars and learn.
We'll take a standpipe and we'll pull up a standpipe and tell a few different war stories, I suppose. So I suppose one of the questions that struck me when you're asking at the beginning there was kind of, what are you happy about? And I think that living with gratitude, or living your life with a degree of gratitude, again, there's research out there, Andy, around just how positive that can kind of make you feel. Because I think sometimes we're very easy, naturally we're drawn to the doom and the gloom and the negative side of life. But I think reinforcing the positives, how do you find that question that sort of lands, Andy?
I mean, we have practiced obviously the group with the captain, so we have sat down and done some practice sessions. And yeah, sometimes it can just be the fact that, do you know what, my daughter actually got dressed on her own today, rather than me having to go in and pick up this and pick up that. But somebody else might just go, do you know what, I got an email today that said thank you just for being me, or thank you for coming into the school, or thank you for the fire. So that gratitude can be that tiny thing to that massive thing. And as Dean's nodding his head there, people will, once they start, as we know, people then just talk at you, don't they? So and it's good. And once that person says how they're grateful for something, that resonates in someone else, and go, actually that happened to me too, but it was like this. And then it's just a chain effect, isn't it, around the circle.
Yeah, and I think there's something quite powerful around that shared experience, isn't there? Around the shared human experience. And people perhaps understanding, well, that's how I feel, and again, that can often spawn a conversation, can't it? And I suppose as well, going through the other questions, that what are your plans for mental health this week? And it's a really good question, isn't it? Because that's potentially something that we should be all challenging ourselves with in terms of the basics around getting good sleep, exercise, talking, doing something, listening to a podcast, allowing some time for ourselves. I think with the pace of life as it is, and certainly over the last couple of years, I think we've all just experienced that pressure cooker of being in lockdown and one thing and another. I think it's a really important question, isn't it? And I think perhaps if I could just tap into some of your expertise around what are the sort of things that people are finding that helps their mental health, Andy?
Again, it is just as basic as getting out the door. Today I've made sure that before I come into this, I had to walk around the yard just to get to that fresh air, that composure, ready to think, right, I've got to talk to people I don't know. It's going to be a little bit daunting, but with that clear head, came back in and we're doing what we're doing. But I think as the fire community, we do it naturally anyway. But yeah, people just say, yeah, just going for a walk. People have started new exercise regimes. Some, as part of the mental health first aid training, you're told as your homework to go away and have an hour to yourself, do something that you like. And just by telling people to do that, even if it's 20, 30 minutes, sometimes just having that walk, that read of a book, that listen to the music, even just go down to the shop and back, is that mental health fitness for the week. It's really important. Even people just say, I took my dog out for an extra walk. That was fantastic. I saw a different time of the day that I wouldn't normally see.
Yeah, and of course, I think one of the things that we sometimes forget is that we don't actually need permission for these things either.
No.
It's actually, I think, and I probably include myself in that really, in terms of just reminding myself that actually self-care is not really optional, is it? It's that we fly along through life and we're next. And I think we started off today with talking about the joy of teams. But of course, for most of us, that's compressed our working day, hasn't it? In terms of we can get more in because we're not having to. So I think it's just been massively important. I think it's a really important question to ask ourselves, isn't it? We're happy to take any sort of further questions really for Andy or Nikki, indeed, around men's talking clubs or other things that we might want to talk about, even if it's just to tell us how you are.
How are people feeling on a scale of 1 to 10 today?
I think I'm with you on a 7, Andy. I think it's a 7 kind of day today. A couple of questions from me really to finish off, if I may. And I think really, what advice would you give anybody who wanted to do something like this in their own fire and rescue service?
Go and do it. Find the right person to get the permission from, and just go and do it. Even if it's in your own time, set it up, because if it is in your own time, there will be other people to support you. But we've been granted as a service to do this, to look at this, and to actually train the captains or the facilitators. So it is about, if you see something, go and ask. And I'm sure, because of the world that we live in and the EDI topics that we need to cover, and we do cover very, very well, you'll get that permission.
Brilliant. And I think as well, just around, Dean's just given us an example there of something that they're doing, locally, and again with no real sort of form. I think would your message be just do it and get it off the ground and try it and see? Is it just about literally getting people talking and just making sure that there are the safeguards there if somebody does need further help?
Yeah, I think for me it was doing your research. I got invited on quite a few walking clubs that are already well established over a good few years, and told the do's and don'ts that they've learned along the way and the mistakes they've made. So it gave me quite a bit of confidence and knowledge going in. You've obviously got a lot of support and backing, and your brigade pushing for it, which is brilliant. We sort of did it on our own, sort of went off, did it locally. But again, word of mouth, Facebook, everything. We're sending a message out by that, and people are slowly hearing about it, turning up. I mean, I well expected for the first 6 months to be walking around the park on my own, and we've had anything from 5 to 10 people turn up every week. Not always the same people either, because of shift patterns. Some can't make it, and like you say, we set out from the outset to say, and we say every week, please don't feel obliged to come. We're going to be here same time, same place every week. If you need it, if you want it, if you feel like coming, please join us. If you can't make it or it's not for you, don't feel obliged that you have to come. But we will be here, rain or shine, if you need it. And it seems to be working well. And like I say, the police and the LAS have heard about it, and now they're supporting us and actually sending our posters out to their members last week, and they're checking in to see how we're getting on now. So we're actually cross-border doing it together, which is great as well. It's a way to all work together, which is great.
That's brilliant. I think because today in the NFCC's podcast, you'll be able to share that with the powers that be to show that this is going on elsewhere.
Yeah, good stuff. Because I think ultimately about what we're here today is about sharing that best practice, sharing the networking, and sharing those experiences. So just before we finish, then Andy, I suppose if there are no further questions, I'll pick up on a couple of things in the chat before we do finish. But Andy, what's your best success story? Could you share one with us? I appreciate. Without breaching confidentiality, could you tell us a success story or general? What success have you had with this?
It's not so much with the Talk Club, obviously, because it's still in its infancy and we're still moving forward with it. But just general day to day, that the welfare support officer role that I do, managing people's expectations, getting people the support and help that they need. Having the training that's been gifted to me by the service. Being able to put people in the right space at the right time. For me, it's about that professional support that we do. Sometimes we have in the past missed, but because of everything that we're doing, especially in Kent, we are gifted to actually go out and find solutions and pathways to support people. And if they're the right things, we can use them. So for me, it is actually supporting my colleagues, my peers through my welfare support officer role to get the right support that they need at the right time.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And just briefly, I'll pick up Nikki. You passed an exam. Are you able to tell us what your exam is? You can't put that in without actually sharing your success.
It's a bit like whoa, but I thought I'd failed, so I was super excited, which is why it's up there. Maybe even a 9. I might even go that far. But I completed. It's the last exam, a completion of my level 7 CIPD in human resources. So I'm like whoop out there.
Well done, Nikki. No doubt, a lot of work, and there's something to be grateful for, isn't it? Well done from us all, and some really positive comments in the chat as well. So if there are no further questions, I think really, Andy, I'm going to ask you. You came in as a 7. Where are you now?
Oh, good strong 8.
Good on you. Well done. Okay, and I think we'll all feel a lot better for that today. I certainly feel encouraged by that. And Andy, just on behalf of the NFCC People Programme, really thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate that. Thanks, Nikki, for introducing us and for arranging for today. And thank you for you all for your attendance. We hope you found it useful. I'll just line back to Aidan to see if there's anything finally that we need to mention.
No, that's all. Thank you for presenting, Andy. Really very interesting. One thing that crossed my mind was I'm very keen to continue to promote this talking club for services, and I wonder, is it possible, would you agree, if I have inquiries from other services, is it okay to put these people in touch with you and Dean as well? I think, any way we can help men talking, and people are always asking for an example of how it's worked elsewhere. So it'd be brilliant if I could signpost these people to you and yeah.
Of course.
Brilliant. Thanks for that.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Aidan. Thanks for your comments in the chat bar. Some really kind comments in there. Being a man, I can't multitask very well, but I have seen them, we have read them, and I think I've picked up on the ones that we needed to do. So thank you so much for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the weekend. Take care, and thanks for joining us. All the best.
I hope you have found this podcast useful and it has given you insight into Men's Talk Club. All Lunch and Learn sessions are available at www.ukfrs.co.uk.